morning, crafters. So I'm part of a card swap group called Canada's Awesomest Card Swap. And every month they give you a theme and you can sign up to either participate or not participate. They post it as an event and you're either going or you're not going. So that's how I signed up. I just hit the going button. If you don't want to go or join the next month, you don't like the theme or you're busy, you just hit not going. There's no obligation to participate. Anyways, this month's theme is going to be vacation. And one of the stipulations is it must have a second layer. So I found a card that I like online that is vacation. And I have the exact stamp set that was used. But there's other bits and bobs to the card itself that I don't think I have exactly what was used. So I'm going to go down into my craft room and I'm going to go see what I have already, because this is the series on use what you have. And so it prevents me from going out and buying stuff that is current in catalogs or that you see other people using that you might not have. Trying to do a series on just using what I own already. And so I've also chosen a card that has a man theme. I find that men cards are really hard to, one, come by, and two, to come up with ideas for it. I seem to have way more ladies cards than men's cards. So this one is going to be a vacation card and a man theme. I do hope you can join me in my craft room. All right, so here's a picture of the card that I want to make that I found online. So it has that second layer and it's got the tropical or vacation theme, and it has a man in it, which I really like this card. It can be for a retirement card, it could be for going on vacation, it could be a happy birthday card. There are so many things that you could make this card into. So I'm about to get started, and the products I'm going to use that I have on hand is the waterfront. I think that's probably the exact stamp set right there that was used in the card. And then what I don't have is that stitched rectangle. So I'm just going to try to cut this rectangle with this die. And then I have this stitched. See, this is just a stitch. It won't actually cut, but it will leave the perforated dots. So I'm going to attempt to do this around the edge on the inside. I think there's a way to do it. We'll see if I'm successful or not. And then that's for the white outer layer, and then the brown outer layer, or the crumb cake outer layer, will be the same thing using this smaller one. And for my background, I'm going to use the Serene scenery paper, and I'm probably going to do some darker blue here, but leave the sky in the background. And just our paper, crumb cake and whisper white. See you back here in a few minutes. So here I have my background piece of paper, and I take my framelit, and I'm just trying to figure out where I want my horizon to be for the ocean and the sky, and I freehand draw that. I have one of the watercolor pencils, and you can buy watercolor pencils at Michael's, but these ones here are from Stampin' Up. I really like how I did that horizon there, dark blue. And then I just go over it and blend it in with the watercolor blender. These are just pen brushes filled with water. That's it. And I really love how this turned out. So I'm showing you here to put your stamp not right in the corner. Sometimes it doesn't give a nice impression. It's too far for the stamp to reach the paper and you can't get a good image. So I always put it over towards the edge a little more. And here I'm just stamping up the image of the man in the chair. And I don't actually have any flesh colored watercolor crayons. So I put some flesh colored ink onto an acrylic block, and I just use my Stampin' Right marker or the watercolor brush to pick it up. And this is a real easy way to pick up watercolors off of your ink pads. You can use any Stampin' Up ink pad or a water-based ink pad and do this and get that watercolor effect. Now the reason why I use the pencils versus the Stampin ink pads is because I find that the pencils give a sharper color, like just it has more color to it. Whereas with picking the ink up off of the acrylic block has more of a watercolor or lighter effect to it. And for this particular image, I did want the sharper colors. So that's why I mostly went with the watercolor pencil crayons. Here I'm just blending in all the colors that I've used. I really like that the blue hat matches the color of the ocean and blends him in with the background of the card. That yellow color, I didn't end up liking that, so afterwards I don't think I have video of it, but I do end up changing that out. I just go over it in a brown and soften that yellow a little bit. So I'm just getting the white piece of paper here for the back, for the frame, the white frame around the card. Now, I've already done one of these off camera, and I remember I said that I was going to do the framelit with the perforated dots. Well, I did that and it didn't work out. So here I'm just making another frame, just measuring twice and cutting once, following the quilter's rule. And then what I do is I take a pencil, a mechanical pencil, and a quilter's ruler, and that's how I get those that stitched look around there. It was really easy to do. It took a little bit of time, but it wasn't terrible. I think that this side's a little thick and I just want to cut it to look like the other three sides. So here's my quilter's ruler and my mechanical pencil, and I just put it on a black ground so that I could see the white better. And this was just really easy to get that similar look to the stitched dies. So I've got my background frame in the crumb cake and my forward frame in Whisper White, and I'm just placing the man there just to get a feel for what it's going to look like in the end. Here I'm about to stamp the sentiment, and again around the sentiment I just do the exact same thing with the mechanical pencil and the ruler and the stitched look. Got a lot of black ink on my fingers. Baby wipes are my friend, I gotta say that. I love my baby wipes. So here's just doing the stitching look around the sentiment, and then I go back and I do the same thing around the brown as well. If you guys have any requests that you would like for me to do as a video, any particular technique or even a particular card, I'm always up for a challenge. So there I have the Relax Your Way sentiment done. I really love the look of these hand stitching. I think that is so cute, and it's so simple to do with a ruler and a pencil. It's so easy. So yeah, hit me up with your challenges, whatever you'd like to see me do. I'd be more than happy to give it a try. I think my next video I'd really like to do some emboss resist. Have you ever done any emboss resist? Post a photo of your cards. Comment here. And if you like these videos, please go and subscribe. I believe at the bottom of this video on YouTube, there's a subscribe button or bell. Hit the button. So I had, prior to doing this here, what I'm doing here is I'm making the island for the palm trees. So prior to doing this, and I'm using my watercolor markers as well, I had stamped it right onto that background with the stamp from the stamp set waterfront, and I did not like the look of it at all. So now that I had ink on that background paper permanently, I needed to cover it up. And that's all part of stamping and making cards, is that sometimes you make boo-boos and sometimes they're happy accidents. They just, it turns out better in the end than what the original does sometimes. Sometimes I'll get ink on a part of my card that I completely did not mean to get ink on, and I'll go back and cover it up with some bling and it'll turn out amazing, even better than the original, or even better than what I had in my mind. So here I'm just trying to correct my boo-boo, and I'm hand drawing the island and stamping the palm trees, and I'm just adding a layer of darker green to the trees with my green from the watercolor crayons. And then I really like how this turned out. I thought that bright green was a little bright, so I went back and I softened it with a darker green. And then I fussy cut around it. So you can see my boo-boo in the background there. So I'm just trying to figure out here for the layout how far. I haven't got the background cut yet for my framelit. And I'm just trying to figure out how far from the right the island needs to come so that I can incorporate it and everything else into the card in a I don't know, just into a size that works. I definitely don't want to put the island all the way to the right of this piece of paper because I want some of that deep blue over on the left to show for the horizon. So I'm right here, I'm just putting on I use a very, very thin dot here. These are just from the dollar store and they're very thin. They're about half as thin as the Stampin' Dimensionals from Stampin' Up. And I wanted the island to pop, to have that 3D effect, but I didn't want it to pop too much. So that's why I opted for the thinner dimensionals here. And the dollar stores are your friends. This is a video series again on using what you have, and go to the dollar store. Get some of your items from there. They have amazing things like these half-size dimensionals. They work fabulous. So I've decided on the placement of my card and I'm happy with that. So here I am. I have all the components of my card ready, mostly, and I am just trying to figure out how to put it together. So here, there was a spot here on this crumb cake stitching that I had missed around the edge. So I just went back and did that. And here I'm layering them together. I use my ATG gun just to layer them together. And then same with that framelit. I use my ATG gun to put the white onto the crumb cake. And I decided in the end that I would be popping the sentiment up off of the frame. So I just liked that because the island in the background is popped up a little bit, I also wanted the man in the foreground and the sentiment to be popped up even more than the island. So this whole card really has a very 3D effect to it. The background is one layer, the island is popped up, then the frame is popped up on top of the island, then the man and the sentiment are all popped up on top of that. So it's about a 5-layer card. It's not terribly thick. It will still go in the mail very nicely. And that's something that I am conscious of when sending cards is how do they fit in an envelope? Will I have to send extra stamp? I will send an extra stamp for this just because it is such a thick card, but it's totally worth it. So here I'm just sizing the background piece of paper. You have some room to play with here because of the frame takes up about 3/4 of an inch. So it doesn't have to be exact, and I'm just marking it off with that mechanical pencil so I know where to cut the background piece of paper here. And if you look at that island, so it's a very bright green here in the video, a yellowish green, but in person it's not that bright.
I find that some of the colors in the videos sometimes are quite saturated. But I like that island, how, see the yellow, it's not yellow, it's green. Anyway, I like the island. So here I'm cutting the card stock for the card base, the actual card that opens, but I've cut it the wrong way. And that's okay, because that paper will get used. We do lots of orientation the other way, so I will eventually use that. So I went back and cut another one properly. And here I'm using my ATG gun. I'm going to stick that whole background right onto that card base. And there is a little bit of a layer around it, which is fine. And I'm just checking the frame there to make sure that that's going to fit on there nicely and cover all the edges there of that background that I need it to cover, and it's centered. These are all things that I wanted to check and double check and triple check. So I have that all in place. And then I'm just popping up this frame with pop dots, the Stampin' Dimensionals. If you guys need any products from Stampin' Up, please let me know. There, I have it all set up and just sticking it down. So here I still don't love the color of this background or the color of the sand. I didn't think that I had done this on camera, but I guess I did. So I just added some watercolor brown, and it really softened that sand from that yellow color that was there. And then I do the same thing on the island. I go and I add a darker green watercolor and I mix that in, and it really softened the color of the island. And then I just pop the man up here with some pop dots. Now I've used a combination here of the half size ones and the full thickness ones from Stampin' Up, because part of him is going to be over the white frame and part of him is not going to be over the white frame. So I did the half ones on his left side and the thicker ones on the right side. However, I did get a thicker one here at the bottom, and I had to go back and cut it off. And by the time I'd cut it off, I'd touched it so many times that the little bit that was left wasn't sticky anymore, and it was sticking up, and I didn't like the look of that. So then I took a smaller pop dot and shoved it underneath the frame there so that I would have something for that little corner there for him to stick to. And I just do the same thing with the Relax Your Way. I put some pop dots on there. And here I use the thin ones. And it just tucks nicely right in that corner. And there we have, the card is done. And as per usual, I finish it off with my personalized stamp, Faye Russell, Better Than a Hallmark Card. And if you haven't already followed me, please go to the RockyMountainCrafter.com or on Facebook or on Instagram. Thanks for watching.